I was working as a maintenance man at a hotel. One shift I was stuck with a coworker that never answered guest room calls. He worked, but rarely answered guest calls. Early in my shift I was swamped, and got 3 room calls within 5 minutes. The first was a clogged toilet, then a car needed a jump, the last was a guest who was too cold in her room. I went to the car first and started jumping it. The guest was in a hurry and trying to leave before the winter storm hit us. I put the battery charger on the dead battery. Once I connected the cables, the guest tried to start the car. I asked him to wait for me. I was watching the charger level slowly go up. Every few minutes the guest would try to start the car. I finally looked at the guest and said, "Give me the keys." He wouldn't, so I said, "I'm taking the charger away until I get the keys." He came out of his car and started telling me I didn't know what I was doing. I told him the battery wouldn't charge until it hit the green line and his car was in the red and he needed to wait. He got back in his car and let me charge the battery. The battery was finally charged, and I gave him a thumbs up to start the car. It turned over and started. I started taking off the battery charger when the guest decided to hold down the horn. I looked up at him and he was smiling like he just won the lottery. I took the charger off and said, "That'll be $50. He looked shocked and said I never agreed to that. I said, "Don't worry, we'll charge your card on file. Have a safe trip home." He went to the front desk and asked if they would charge for a battery jump for his car. Short answer is we don't charge for it, but for those 5 minutes he thought we did. I then went to the room that was cold. To be fair, she was probably waiting for about 10 or 15 minutes. I knocked on the door and was greeted by a frantic woman.
"I've been waiting for an hour and I'm wearing an effing Minx."
"I'm sorry, I had to jump start a car."
"I don't care, I'm freezing, now turn the heat on."
I went over to the room heater and made sure it was on and checked the temperature. The heater was on and heat was coming from it, but it didn't have the fan running. She was standing behind me watching my every move.
"Well, what is it? Do I need to move to another room?"
"The heat is on, but the fan isn't running. If you could move to the side, I can turn the fan on." She moved to the side and let me pass her. I went to the thermostat and turned it up to 80 and the fan kicked on, warming the room up. She lost it as soon as she felt the heat.
"That's it? That's all it took?"
"I guess so, miss."
"This is ridiculous. Why wasn't the heat on when I checked into the room? Why was it off?"
"I think the last guest in the room turned it off."
"Was the room cleaned after they left?"
"Yes, it was, miss."
"Well then, the heat should have been left on. I'm done, I want to speak to a manager."
We both left the room and were waiting for the same elevator. She was still yelling at me like it was my fault someone turned off the heat. She then started poking me with her finger, asking for my last name. I wouldn't give it to her. She then said,
"I've been coming here since 1972.
"Then you think you'd know how to turn on the heat?" Her face turned red, and she went around the corner and waited for a different elevator. I wanted to give the front desk manager a heads up. I got in the elevator and went to the front desk, but it was too late. She was already in the lobby screaming at the front desk manager about her room being below zero. She wanted a free room for her 2-night stay and kept screaming at the manager. I walked past her and stood in the back office. After a few minutes, the manager came back and asked what happened. I told her what happened. She said she would take care of it. But she needed to put it in the manager on duty report. This meant all managers would get a copy of the incident. I would probably be receiving a write-up. The next day I clocked in and got called to my chief engineer's office right away. I went up to his office and sat down. He looked up at me and I said, "Yes, I did it. Give me the write-up, I'll sign it." He asked me what I was talking about. I replied, "What are you talking about?" He handed me a piece of paper and it was an attaboy for all the calls I got last night. He asked me again what happened last night, so I told him about the cold guest and the heating issue. Then about what I said back to her. He laughed and said, "Don't do that again." The guest received a free night stay.
Red alert, we have a Karen! We have a Karen!
If you're not a Karen, subscribe. Karens are not welcome.